So there are a couple of themes when we think about heaven. The themes are like in sort of like the Abrahamic religions, which is basically one religion, but there's a light version, the light 2.0, and the hidden, and then the hidden. It's just the same thing, yeah. What they say is that heaven is essentially closeness to God, freedom from suffering, people experiencing pure happiness, bliss, and peace. Peace is a key word, yeah, hold that in your mind. Now, in Eastern kind of like religious beliefs, they say nirvana is a state of liberation from suffering, which stems from attachment and desire, yeah? So they say it's a state of liberation from suffering and desire, and going beyond the cycle of rebirth, samsara, yeah? And it's essentially spiritual enlightenment and ultimate tranquility. Okay, cool. In Islam, they also say things like it's a lush, beautiful garden where righteous people live in eternal bliss with all their desires fulfilled, not earthly desires, all their desires fulfilled in the presence of God. There's no mention of 72 virgins, I'm not sure, but that's something that, hey. But so when we actually start to think about it, it becomes clear that heaven is a place where, one, is closeness to God. Two, there's no suffering, there's no pain, and there's no attachment, yeah? And three, there's peace, there's bliss, there's tranquility, harmony, yeah? Okay, at this point in the game, because now we're doing high-level metaphysics, we know that we're energy expressing in human form. We're not even from here. We're just visiting this place. We're transient things just occupying bodies. We don't even occupy the bodies. We literally vibrate the bodies into being. Yeah, but I'll talk about that another time. So that's kind of like the overview of what heaven is. Now, my question to you is: do you think a human can go to heaven? A man born of flesh can go to heaven? So one to ponder. Now, in the biblical account, they say it's impossible for a rich man, keyword being rich, a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. It's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to go to the kingdom of God. It's very simple when you understand the kind of like encoded message in there. A rich man is attached to his riches. They didn't say abundant man. They didn't say whatever. They said rich. So rich. And if you've seen the nouveau riche, you know how they operate. They're attached to their things. My car, my clothes, my shoes, my things. Yeah, because they're still infants. They don't actually know what's actually going on. So it's impossible for them to enter the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven is not a place. It's a state of mind, and I'm going to show you how it's a state of mind. Now, when we think back to Neo in the Matrix, right? I'm going to decode a little bit. Fuck it, why not? When Neo's pod gets kind of like activated, right? All the attachments have to be pulled, all the plugs out of his arms, out of his back of his head, everything, yeah? Think of them as your attachments. Now, imagine if Neo had one or two of those things attached to him still. Would he have been able to get flushed down the birth canal to be born? Oh, dishwasher, your mother. Honestly, like, bro, I set this thing up. Guys, give me a sec, man. The Matrix, bro. Right, I think it stopped for a little bit, so we'll just carry on talking. So, it's impossible for a person with attachments to get into the kingdom of heaven, yeah? That's one thing to think about. Now, we also think that in terms of physical things, I'm not going to get, beat down by this rubbish. In terms of the physical aspect, it's not so clear because people tend to think of, right, you need to shed the body in order to be able to go to heaven, right? In a sense, it's true, but it's not true at the same time because we are dual in nature, yeah? The horizon, we're spiritual and physical at the same time. So yes, you can shed the body and, return back to the oneness, closeness to God, free from suffering and pain, no attachment, peace and bliss. But you can also, whilst you're present in your physical form, once you remove the attachments, all the tethers to the world, so then you become free of suffering, right? You draw closer to God, which is the energy that's actually powering you. You will experience closeness to God and peace and bliss. And that's experiencing heaven on earth. And in fact, when you tap into that frequency, whether you have a body or not, you will remain in heaven. Facts. Now think about this for a second. When you see animals, right? When animals when animals interact with each other, what's the first thing that tends to happen? Is it one of indifference, or is it one of conflict and aggression and manipulation? When a dog sees another dog, do they not square up? Do they not bark and, hey, who's that? Cats do the same. Snakes, lions, bears, tigers, the list goes on forever. Because the flesh, by its natural default position, is not indifferent. It's attached to the story of the reality. Let me say that one more time. The flesh, by the way it is, the beast nature, is attached to the reality. Okay? Cool. So anybody that's operating from flesh in any way is attached to this reality. When you attach to this reality, attachment, like a tether, it is impossible for you to get to the kingdom of God. It's easier for a camel to squeeze through the eye of a needle because you have an attachment. Now there's some people making noise outside. What the fuck, man? Anyway, back to the animal thing. You remember in lecture 1, we spoke about how Adam essentially listened to his flesh, which is Eve. Eve listened to her flesh, which is the animal nature. Okay. All of us are born through a woman. Yeah? So all of us have animalistic natures. All of us are narcissists. All of us are bad people. All of us are all those things. Yeah? But we choose not to be those things because we recognize what we are. We don't operate from the flesh. We operate from spirit, from consciousness. Okay. Now, Arthur Schopenhauer, who's actually one of my favorite writers, he said something. It might sound controversial, but we're going to take it one step deeper. And here, we don't deal with the flesh, male, female, that stupid shit. We are energy expressing in different forms. So we're going to have this conversation. Schopenhauer said, and I'm paraphrasing, he said, by nature, a man is indifferent when he comes into contact with other men or anybody. They're just indifferent. Women, however, their natural disposition is one of conflict. And when I read that, I thought, that's very interesting. But I look at things from the metaphysical standpoint, not the physical. So when you think about it, he's told you, in essence, the truth. When one is operating from the position of awareness, right? You'll be indifferent to the reality because you realize what the reality is. But when you are attached to the reality, you operate in conflict. You want to secure a position. That's yours. That's me. You puff up your chest. You fucking, display your colors. You hiss. You blow up your hood. You rattle your thing. Yeah. You bare your teeth. You growl. You bark. You bite. You poison. You do all those sorts of things because why? You are in your animal nature. It's nothing to do with male or female. It's everything to do with states of awareness. Let me tell you something. When a man, or energy expressing as a man, male, is argumentative, is in a gang, is look at me, look at me, look at me, vain, overly concerned with their looks, overly concerned about what others think, overly concerned about he's looking at me, overly concerned with all of that, manipulates people, he is expressing fully as a female. The only thing he's missing is a vagina, bro. Any male that operates like that is a female. You need to literally switch on your matrix eyes and you see them for what they are. That's a female. Because why? They are attached to flesh and they are operating from flesh. Because a man's natural position, when I say a man, I mean person with a higher level of awareness, should be one of indifference. When you come across a female that doesn't behave like the regular female, isn't catty, isn't jealous, isn't gossipy, conflicty, judgy, all that kind of weird stuff, doesn't manipulate people, doesn't, lie and do all those fucking things. That female, it can be said, is operating from a high state of awareness. It's almost like they're operating from the masculine energy. And it's not masculine in the sense of the 3D world of, boss bitch and masculine, alpha, stupid shit. They're operating from the highest state of awareness. Go back to yesterday's lecture and you see what I said, because the masculine had to express first for the female to express. So in fact, they're expressing closer to their essence, because the true essence of God is one of indifference. God is indifferent. When you are drowning, God is there in your body, but it's your time to go. When you get knocked on your motorbike and you're flying in the air, you're like, is this it? God is there with you, but it's time to go. Indifference. You get it? So the notion of masculine and feminine the whole thing has to be completely reframed. We're all born of flesh. So naturally, we're all born in the flesh realm. We're all born in hell. We're all nurtured by our mothers. We all have maternal wounds, some of us. We're all nurtured by females. We're all programmed by the flesh ideology. So we have those instincts in us, is put in us, is part of our config. That's why we all exhibit masculine and feminine energies. But feminine energies, again, going back to Eve, is the flesh of the feminine energy is one of the beast, one of the flesh. So if you operate in a flesh, in attachment, in any of those sorts of ways, the camel will go through the needle before you can. Heaven is a state of mind where you are closer to God. There's peace, there's tranquility, there's bliss, there's harmony. What is peace? How does one attain peace? I dated a girl once, right? And she came from one day we'll talk about it, bro. It was like when I was actually going through my proper shit, I could literally write a book about that time, bro. It was like this person lived in a world of utter chaos. And it manifested even in the 3D. Everything was a mess. The house was a mess. Everything was a mess. Everything was constantly a mess. And I couldn't figure it out. I was like, but in your mind, you're like, oh yeah, but, because attachment. And I realized that that's not peace. That's literally the opposite of peace. It's literally chaos showing you that you are actually in a wrong zone. It's like you've gone into a room and that things go If you are in any situation like that in your life, you are not at peace. Recognize that you are not in heaven. You're not close to God. You're actually operating from flesh, because whatever reason you had to stay in that space is an attachment. When you're actually operating from a higher state of awareness, you should be able to go to sleep anywhere. And if you lose your body that day, you should be cool. Like, yeah. It's a state of mind. When you live in chaos, you are afraid of losing your physical body. Why? Because you're attached to it. So you're afraid of death. And women, i.e., consciousness expression in the feminine form, is only expressing that in the physical. But both aspects of consciousness, i.e., masculine, all three aspects, masculine, feminine, and neutral, all exist within the female. Masculine, feminine, neutral, all exist within the male. Masculine, feminine, neutral, all exist in the child, in the neutral as well, because it's the same power. When you overly identify with your flesh, overly identify with the program of your flesh, overly identify with the program, the beast program of your flesh, you will never be liberated from this place. You will see heaven in glimpses, but you always return to it. As a man, if you operate from feminine energy, he did that to me, he hurt me, he said this, attachment, you are operating in feminine energy, you are operating in a beast program, you will never see heaven. In your own Bible, when Moses got everybody to cross the thing, God said, yeah, you see the promised land, but you're not going to get there because you have anger. He didn't say he had anger, but he had anger because he was attached. You can never be angry if you're not attached. Anger and attachment go hand in hand. Kids are making noise upstairs, they're playing the video games. Do you understand? So a living, breathing human being can access heaven if they die to the body. They die to the physical. They die to the beast side of themselves. They will literally be in communion with God. They will be at peace and they will not be attached to any outcomes. Because that replays the Garden of Eden once again. You're close to God, you're abundant, it's lush gardens, it's tranquil, it's peaceful, everything's harmonious, and life just happens. Everything just happens. But as things are happening, we're not attached to any outcome. Because why? Because we know that we are consciousness experiencing life at the event horizon, and life is just happening. It's a video game. I'm just watching it. I don't have a horse in this race. Even my body's not a horse in this race. I don't know, man. It's cool. It's a lot to unpack, but high-level metaphysics is like that. Because you truly need to recognize your being, bro. Look, when we are all magnetized, and assimilated back into the one, me, you, and everybody else are no different. We're just one entity. Do you know why when you go into the bush in Africa or you go to South America, where we still have remnants of people that are truly in touch with higher levels of consciousness, the women don't even cover their boobs, but the men don't walk around with boners? Have you not, don't you think, Why is that? Because they're not attached to the flesh. People walk around naked and it's cool. Because sex is actually not that important to them. It's actually a base thing, and it serves a purpose. And when you're living in those higher states of awareness, it's not about that kind of stuff. So therefore, you operate, and the harmony between the expressions, or should we say the sexes, is magical. Have you not realized that sexes even spells sexes backwards on itself? It tells you that we are actually just one thing, just being looked at from two different perspectives. Can't even speak. You get it? Heaven is a state of mind. So in order for you to reach there, drop the attachments to everything, including your body. Drop the programs that you think you should be running on. You're not an animal. Life should not be about manipulation and control and conflict and trying to get one up on the next person. There's nobody there to get one up on. Eve, being in her base desire, in her base aspect, the flesh, wanted to get one up on God, wanted to be like God. How? If it wasn't for God, you wouldn't even be expressing in this garden right now. So what are we doing here? Drop the ego, bro. It won't serve you. I've lived it. It won't serve you. You keep doing that, God will just put you on your knees, bro. Put your face in the fucking mud. I'm telling you. I'm telling you, bro. And if you carry on, you know the deal. Draw closer to the force within you. See, one big illusion they gave us, and they started to make men worship the flesh, was the whole institution of marriage and how it's done in the West. In other cultures, it's not done like that. They make the man kneel, which is an act of worship itself. You know, men crying over flesh. But the same men would not go on their knees and cry when they're actually giving thanks for their life, the very force that's keeping them alive. Do you see how the illusion works? You make the woman your God. When you make the woman your God, you've made flesh your God. You're gonna be operating from ego for the rest of your life. And the woman doesn't actually want to be God. It's an illusion. She's just a participant. Because from that, there are also things, attachments that kind of are conferred to her, or she confers to herself. You see it? God first in all things. Draw closer to God. Everything else will be, it's just, it's free. Everything else will be given to you free. Bro, just play the game as a character that God wanted you to play as, not some muppet that you think that you are supposed to play as. So that's heaven in a nutshell, bro.